You're in a good mood. You weren't as impressed with the others. Most of the adults are being so touristy. Yeah, when it comes to vacations, I'm not really one to be about the tourist attractions, really, you know? Unless if it's like a really cool thing. This time, I would say I'm not as impressed as the others. The only thing you could see for miles around were bigger than usual trees. You don't understand what was so great about the place. You also had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting. I can't believe our vacation. I can read. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled at her, even if it was a little awkwardly, and continued walking along. Just watch, next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family. It's because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you. Yeah. Maybe one day we will be related legally anyways. No, it just knows. I knew it was coming, but... Oh, my camera. You good, camera? That'll be good. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. I was so worried about what he was about to say, but he'd be joking. Maybe I guess you and me could... I can read. Aha. He really threw me off guard with that. Maybe I guess you and me could get married, Elizabeth.
What?
Me? Yeah, that way Z would be my sister-in-law. That would be fun. Elizabeth stuck her tongue out at Cove as if the very idea were ridiculous. This reminds me of Chloe. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. You told her to cut it out already. Cove has a point. It wasn't a great comment. I remember the I'll marry you, Cove. You're embarrassed. I'll marry Cove on the same day Shiloh's mom marries Cove's dad. That seems like a weird joke to make right now, considering he jokes about marrying Elizabeth. Even though it's funny. Cove has a point, it wasn't angry. You know what? I'll say it. I'll say we can joke. We can joke. No, I think it's too weird actually. I'll say I'm embarrassed. Why did she always have to say things like that? It wasn't fun, and she knew it. After no further replies, your sister walked ahead. You and Cove swapped uncomfortable looks. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Ma said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. How did we know that? I know I wouldn't know that. You're glad you got to do this in the end. You were disappointed to only have one day in the park. You thought the long trip wasn't worth only one day here. You had more fun hanging out in the RV. You had a good time with this trip. No, you were glad you got to do this in the end. It was definitely a special experience and one you remember for a long time to come. You smiled to yourself, committing the sights and sounds to memory. The group made it back to the camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were reappearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it. Most you traded stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner, and afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth, Cove, and Clove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourself after the cramped journey there. And while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. I'm gonna hang out with him. That's not even me like trying to push a relationship for each other. Might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for. Oh, he took a seat on the sofa while Ko sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. You're welcome for the better jacket, by the way. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in summer. Yeah, it is summer. Why did we give him a jacket? Yeah. Oh yeah, I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot, and it's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I love wearing layers. I'm a hoodie person. It's summer right now, but I'd be wearing a hoodie because I'm like, yeah, it'd be comfy. You know, we love accessories too, actually, if I think about it. That's probably why I have a closet almost filled to the brim at home. Ko smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. You changed the subject. You asked him what he liked to see others wear. I kind of want to pick the second option, but I still feel like it's kind of weird, so I'm going to change the subject. The conversation had run its course. Instead, you asked Cove about what else he would have liked to do in the park if he had more time here. The two of you ended up chatting about various outdoor activities available: kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, horseback riding, wildlife walks. There were so many things to potentially choose from. You made an agreement that if one of you ever had the chance to come back, you'd bring the others too. That way, you could try it all together again. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. But that was it? That was the whole trip? Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye as the group hunkered down for the night. Your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but will be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You'd enjoyed this mini adventure. You thought the trip had been okay. You thought the trip was a waste of time. You hadn't had a good time. What am I? Of course I enjoyed this mini adventure. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much more during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from your home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kira to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wonder if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you can make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. You grinned back at him, you make a silly face, you waved at him. I just grinned back. Cove shrugged in his bed and still smiling, or at least he thought he did. He then gestured for him to come over. He then went back trying to sleep. Then decided to have fun quietly. See, I'm scared when they say gesture for him to come over. No, but the balloon means serious. So I'll do it. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow and froze up like a deer in headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad, make it to the ladder, and standing on the bottom rung where he looked up at you and whispered, "What?" "Hi." "Oh, it was nothing." I'd invite him up to the loft. As long as we don't sleep together, you know? "Do you want to come up?" His eyes widened just so. You could only tell because he had to come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly as the sleeping parents were turning back to you. "Okay." You broke out into a grin and scooched it back as far as you could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Luckily, you were short enough to leave him with some room. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. You laid down next to each other on your sides face to face. He got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms were nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was rested alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you softly. "So what am I doing here?" "I don't know. I thought we could hang out. You can sleep here instead of..." "No, we're not sleeping here. I thought we could hang out." Cove's eyebrows dipped. He probably thought you had something more important than that going on. "It isn't a big deal for us to both be in the loft, right?" Yeah, it's not some huge thing. We've shared a million times by now. And you're usually there the ones encouraging us." Cove gestured in the direction of the parents, and you nodded in agreement. They had always tried to put you and Cove together ever since you were little. "Wait, so does that mean I offered him to... That's not what I wanted." "I wonder how much trouble we'll be in if we get caught." "It wouldn't be nearly as much as we would have been if my mom's found out you snuck into my room for the night at the start of summer." He winced just imagining it. "I still can't believe I did that and didn't get caught." It was a very dramatic morning. You could easily picture his frantic escape in your mind's eye. "You're kind of a troublemaker, aren't you, Cove?" "No, I don't think so." Cove trailed off, and he seemed to be lost in his own thoughts. "Maybe sometimes." Cove smiled fondly at you, and you grinned triumphantly. Spent the rest of the night smooshed up in a little loft together, whispering about your past memories and trying not to giggle too loud at the silly things you had gotten up to together over the years. Eventually the chatting trailed off, and when you noticed Cove had drifted off to sleep, you followed suit after. So they slept together. That's not what I wanted. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. You noticed quickly that you weren't as warm as you had been during the night, and when you checked next to you, Cove was gone. Let's go, Cove! MVP! Blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to find out where he had gone. Maybe he had snuck back to his spot on the floor during the night. However, you soon noticed him sitting on the couch, talking quietly with his mom. His head hung in embarrassment. Why is... Your movement gave you away, and Kira suddenly looked up and caught your eye. She simply smiled amusingly at you, and it was obvious what happened. Cove hadn't gotten away with it. They found him there in the loft, and then you woke up while he was trying to explain. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before you lived this one down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their rooms dressed and ready for the day of travel. Spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kira suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now, you understood. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days away. Everyone must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreeable that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Let's go! Laziness! Once again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. You're happy to be in your own bed. It felt weird to be alone. It felt good to be alone. You wished you were still on the trip. You missed being near Cove. See, I'm kind of like a weird introvert, where like, I feel like when I hang out with my friends a lot, sometimes like after it's all done, I'm like, huh, I guess that all happened. But you know what, we can hang out tomorrow. It felt good to be alone. After 3 days squashed together in an RV like a can of sardines, having your own private space again felt great. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. And that's it, I guess. So I think I'm going to end the recording here, like I did last time. Because this seems like actually a really long game. Like a lot longer than I expected. But, yeah. I think I'm guessing in step 3, that's when the game will end. So, in the next recording session, I guess we'll end the game. We'll see. See you guys in the next one. Bye.